Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. Let's kick things off with a tale from 2016, back when our OP was the cable guy for Time Warner Cable, dealing with all sorts of customers, including the unforgettable Karens. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. Cable Karen. This takes place all the way back in the ancient year of 2016. I was working as a field tech cable guy for Time Warner Cable, one of the greatest companies I ever worked for. My job was to install and repair cable services in homes. I'd already dealt with my share of Karens before this, but this lady took the cake and then demanded another one for free. I had her work order to install internet only. Looking at the account number, it ended in 04 or 05, meaning it was the fourth or fifth time that house had been serviced. Tells me there should be cable already there. I get there, introduce myself, and start my site inspection. I ask where she'll want her modem, and she takes me to her son's room at the front corner of the house. I see there's cable coming in through the wall. That cable goes straight outside through the wall and is wrapped to a bundle of cables that goes around the corner of the house and is to our demarcation point. I tell her the cable looks a little wonky and I might need to replace it. She stomps her foot down and says, "No drilling in my house." I assure her I won't need to drill. I can use the existing hole to run a new cable through it. She won't even be charged for it. She doubles down and I tell her we'll cross that bridge when we get there. I'll need to do some stuff outside and test that line first. I connect a probe to the cable so I can verify which line it is outside. I go outside. She stands on the porch watching me. I set my ladder up on the pole, make sure the line from the pole to the house is connected and I have a good signal from my tap. I do. Next, I go to the house box and check signal again. Quick math tells me the line is good. I ask if she currently had satellite like Dish or DirecTV. I get a forceful no. So now I can unplug any cables around the demarc point. There's a lot of them, and I use the other end of my probe to find the cable in her son's room. It's a simple test. In her son's room, the cable has a red probe. My tester comes with 4 probes of different colors, and when it's connected to a cable with a probe on the other end, the light for that color comes on. The cable from me to the modem is less than 20 feet long. I go through all the loose cables and nothing. I start unhooking satellite cables going toward the house, nothing. I try unhooking cables going toward the satellite dishes, nothing. Finally, I follow the cable from where it comes out of the room through the bundle and into the house box. It still doesn't tone out. Not good. I hook it up and go inside to test signal, none. This cable's broken somewhere. I tell her I have to replace it, but I won't be drilling. I'll use the same hole, and She cuts me off. I thought I was clear. No drilling, no holes. I repeat, I won't be making any new holes. I'll use the one that's already there, and I can put a wall plate over it so it looks better. She explodes, saying her house looks good enough. It didn't. That I didn't know what I'm doing. I do. And if I'm going to do this, I'm going to hook every TV in every room up. In my area during this time, you could get about 70 channels by plugging your TV straight into the cable. Now, in my mind, alarms are going off. My brain is calling away battle stations. No, is my calm response. I will bend over backward to get your internet working. You will not be getting free TV from me. Karen then informs me if I don't, she'll have me fired. I tell her I need to replace the line. The existing one is damaged. TV, she says. We're now at an impasse. I'm not wasting my time or hers. I tell her to have a nice day, and I get in my van to leave. As soon as I get on the road, I grab my phone to call my boss to give him a heads up, but he calls me. From "have a nice day" to my phone ringing has been less than 3 minutes. I'll say this about my boss, he was amazing. He knows some people are just jerks, and we knew that if we were honest with them, no matter how bad it was, it would be better for us. As the phone rings, I'm thinking, no way. No way she's that fast. Turns out he was calling about something else, but I gave him the heads up. He asked me what I'd done there at that house and a few other probing questions, then told me to email him a summary of it. This was my last job before lunch, so I went home for lunch early, advantage of being in the field in the town you live in, typed up the email, and enjoyed a slightly longer lunch. This story's a solid reminder of the wild stuff field techs have to navigate, and you handled it like a pro. What a ride. And our second story. You won't stop cold calling a printing company to sell us printing unless I agree to set up a meeting with one of your reps? Okay then. In the mid-2000s, I worked for a small printing company. Our commercial work was on large lithographic machines, but we still had office printers and a number of staff who knew a lot about them. I don't think a single one of our office printers had been purchased new or even working. The owner just bought lots of broken office printers for not a lot of money, then Frankenstein them into working ones. We didn't often buy printer paper because we just cut leftovers from the factory to suitable sizes for the office. Overall, our office printing costs were extremely low despite the fact that we printed tens of thousands of pages a year. I was a general office dog's body. Among my duties was fielding calls for the director. He would never take calls from cold callers, and I was allowed to describe myself as whatever job title they wanted to hear to deal with them. An office printing management service had got our number. They were offering a completely managed service where they loaned the machine, supplied the consumables, took care of everything, and you just paid per print. Great for some companies, expensive and unnecessary for us. When they first started ringing, I kept telling them, "Sorry, we aren't interested. Please remove us from your list," or "We're a printing company. We don't need managed printing services. Please take us off your list." This must have gone on for months, and I was getting annoyed that they wouldn't take us off the call list and started spending more time trying to explain to them why it was pointless and a waste of both our time to keep ringing. I explained the information above, but the caller was convinced he could save us money regardless of all that. I guaranteed him he couldn't, as I doubted we paid more than a penny a page. Naturally, he didn't believe me. As far as he was concerned, if I was answering the phone, I was the office junior. No one important answers the phone, who had no idea how much printing actually cost, and just too stubborn and/or stupid to put him through to someone that mattered, and if he persisted, eventually he'd get through to the right person who would reward him with a juicy contract. This same conversation was had at least once a week for the next month or two. He's desperate to let me set up a meeting. Besides, he says he can take us off the list once he's set up a meeting with the decision maker. Right, fine, sure, you can book a meeting for your reps, but I guarantee it'll be a complete waste of their time. I scheduled them a meeting with the office manager, me, on a Friday afternoon when I'm the only one in the office, so I won't be too busy and it'll be a diversion. The reps arrive, I show them into the office. They are clearly thinking we spend a lot on printing because we have so many damn printers, and I gave a rough idea of how much we get through in the office. They give me their enthusiastic spiel about all the advantages, focusing on the costs. They want to sit down with the figures and see what they can save us. Do I know what we spend at the moment? Paraphrase conversation. Me, not completely sure. Think it's around 100 to 200 pounds a year. Rep, nah, it'll be a lot more than that with the amount of printing you do. Is that just the paper? Me, no, that's just ink and toner. Rep looks skeptical. Well, there's the paper too. Me, to be honest, we mostly cut down leftover paper from the factory, or sometimes suppliers give us a few cases for free. Rep, okay, right. So what about the initial cost of the machines? If you average it out over the lifetime of prints rather than considering it just as capital expenditure, it can make up a significant portion of your printing costs. This photocopier, for example, is a few years old now. You're looking at about 12,000 pounds to replace it with a similar spec machine. So with our service, you can avoid that capital expense. Me, the owner buys them broken and repairs them. Most of the printers only cost a few quid, except the photocopier, which I think cost us 700 pounds. As even broken, they're expensive, and it took 3 broken ones to make the one working one. Rep, right, so when you need to replace it, me, I hazard to guess he'll do exactly the same again. Rep, and the ongoing maintenance costs? Me. Rep, then there's the cost and lost productivity of downtime to consider. He's trailing off at this point. It's clearly part of his rehearsed spiel, but he can see downtime isn't an issue when we bizarrely have more printers than computers. Rep, there's absolutely no point us being here, is there? Me, no, I'm afraid not. That was repeatedly explained to the guy who set up the meeting, but he said your company won't stop cold calling until we agree to a meeting, so here you are. The reps agree it's a complete waste of time, have a bit of frustrated laugh about the call center, and say it's not the first time they've been sent to completely pointless meetings because the Call center folks get their commission based on the quantity, not quality of the meetings they set up. They don't bother giving me their quote. I never heard from the company again. I would have pretended to be completely oblivious to what they were saying and spent the entire time trying to sell them your services instead. And our last story. Call the police? Sure. In our mid-20s, my husband and I purchased and moved into our rather modest first house with our infant daughter. I made a big effort to meet and befriend our neighbors, and all of them warned me to be careful of one particular person, Jane. Jane had lived on the street for 3 years, and at this point had earned herself the nickname Big Fat Jane, as she was manipulating, intimidating, and thoroughly awful. Jane ran a daycare from her house, but neighbors on both sides reported hearing her scream at the children and leave them unsupervised in the garden. It's important to note that Jane's partner is a police officer. The neighbors were scared of retaliation if they reported her or stood up to her. It seemed Jane would use this to get away with her horrific behavior. Our house had a driveway with a dropped curb big enough for one car, but we could fit both if you blocked in the first and only used the second car. Parking on the street was very limited, and we had double yellow lines outside of our house, not allowed to stop/park there. During some essential roof work, our driveway was taken up by scaffolding and a skip, so we parked in the street and my husband parked outside BFJ's house. The next day, when he went to his car, BFJ came running down her path shouting at him. She screamed about his antisocial parking, that his car would be towed, and that he could expect it to be scratched up if he left it there any longer. My husband calmly explained it was a public road and she had no right to police the space. Her screeches at this point were loud enough that I and several neighbors heard and came to see the commotion. Her partner was perched at the door during all of this, saying and doing nothing. When she saw me on pavement with our daughter, she pointed and screamed, "You'll have the social on you if you don't F off. I'll scratch you right up." At this point, I told my husband to come back and we were calling the police. She responded, "Call the police? I effing dare you." He's, pointing at her partner, "A policeman. He'll effing sort you out. You won't know what hit you." At this point, my husband looked at her husband and said, "Is that right? And you're agreeing with what she said?" The partner nodded and said, "You need to move or accept the consequences. You call the police, it won't get you anywhere." Funny, when I then took out my phone and dialed the non-police emergency number on speakerphone and made a police report, both of them looked a lot less confident. BFJ stood there, open-mouthed, and grabbed her partner and slammed the door. We haven't heard from her since. Her partner was placed on suspension due to the allegation and further allegations from our neighbors. After our confrontation, BFJ was given a warning for a public order offense. However, due to a number of reports, her daycare closed and she's no longer able to mind children. Their house is up for sale. However, as she made a number of modifications without proper planning or works people, its price is significantly lower than they expected, and they're in negative equity. All because of a parking space. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.